You can already see that what Spinoza is doing here. For anyone who can read at this point, in 1670, looking at this very early argument, what's he really doing? He's attacking what he calls superstition. He's really attacking religion as an institution. So it should not be surprising to you that this kind of assault on religion is going to be perceived by not just sort of Catholics or Jews, it's going to be perceived by every religious authority. Leaders do, they take advantage of a natural thing that we have, superstition. They manipulate our fears and hopes by giving us a bunch of stuff that doesn't really work and dressing it up in all kinds of ways and then getting us to fight each other over it. And you can imagine that anybody with power in all this is going to be at least upset. Let's make matters worse. Religious power is not the only power in the world in 1670. Right? We also have to talk about, over here, secular power. Now, the king cannot get authority on his own. He has to get authority from somewhere else. He's not able to claim authority on his own, except how it will work. Now, kings have a weird ability, right? They have the ability to tax and they have the ability to kill, but we dress it up and they have fancy things called, it's called the death penalty and taxation. Now, they can't claim that authority on their own. The power of life and death has to belong to God. And the ability to steal things, to counteract, because the Bible says, and the Quran too, right? Thou shalt not steal. So in order for me to be able to do things like that, I can only do it because I have the backing of God. In the Catholic world, there's a person capable of giving you that kind of authority, the Pope. In the Gospel, right, Jesus tells to Peter, anything you bind in heaven will be bound in heaven, anything you bind on earth will be bound on earth. He gives Peter what are called the keys to the kingdom. If you ever look at a papal seal, two keys, the keys that bind heaven and the keys that bind earth. The Pope has power because the Pope gets his power from Peter, and Peter got his power from Jesus. So you have a literal transfer of the power to bind heaven and bind earth. If you can bind the heavens, that means you can change the rules. You can bend the rules at least. And so what's going to happen here in the Christian Middle Ages, at least the Catholic world, the only person that can put that crown on their head is going to be the Pope. The Pope has the biggest empire in medieval Europe. And in the Middle Ages, there is no larger landowner than the Catholic Church. What's going to happen here, right, is that the secular powers sit in an uneasy alliance with the religious powers. Because the religious powers need the secular powers to do things like keep the peace. But the Pope will need fighting to happen. So let's say the King of France doesn't want to play ball with me. I'll be like, look, let's make a deal. You depose them, your house will be in charge, I'll give you the blessing, and trust me, that happens over and over and over again. Because it was politics. Politics, like straight up, like game Pope. The kings need the religious authorization of the popes, and the popes need the money and the resources of the kings. Now, this produced a kind of uneasy alliance, but really what it produced was a system in which both systems were interlocked, and both systems became incredibly corrupt. So corrupt, by the Protestant Reformation, the Catholic Church was literally taking money to get people out of purgatory, called indulgences. This led Martin Luther to do his thing. Right? This was how corrupt it was. I've often been amazed to find that people who are proud to profess the Christian religion, that is, the religion of love, peace, joy, moderation, and goodwill to all men, opposing each other with the most extraordinary animosity and giving daily expressions of bitterest mutual hatred. So it's easy to recognize an individual's faith than the latter. So it's easy to recognize people by how they dress than by what they do. You can tell Jews and Christians and Turks from how they dress more than what they do, because what they do is all the same. I mean, you ever thought about this? Jesus love your enemies, and Christians kill each other. All of your religion. Literally, Jesus said you have to love your enemy. How can you love your enemy at the tip of a sword? Spinoza says, look, churches become theaters where people went to hear ecclesiastical orators rather than learn from teachers. Pastors no longer sought to teach, strove to win a reputation for themselves while denigrating those who disagree with them. This was bound to generate a great deal of conflict, rivalry, and resentment, which no passage of time could heal. That is to say, they've been doing this for a long time, and they ain't going to stop doing it. I mean, you see these preachers. You give me a bunch of money, you're really giving it to God, and God will pay you back more. The prosperity gospel. If you give it to God, God will give it back. For Spinoza, this is a scam. He's not going to be completely against religion, but he's going to have a specific idea of what religion is. That a system of control, to control people, religion gets developed. The real way of controlling people is through weapons, and that's the state. A situation where we have church and state mixed together, and the purpose of this for Spinoza is social control. It makes you fight for your slavery as if it's your liberation, right? Because you want to serve the state. Again, when I go serve the state, am I benefiting from it? Am I helping me? And not only that, right, but with this situation, you have the church rubber stamping it, so if you die in a war, we know you go to heaven. Now, what Spinoza says, the whole reason why this was developed was because the system was unstable. That instability doesn't go away. It actually just becomes worse. Taking the instability, and we've centralized it and covered over it with pomp and ritual. Has that gotten rid of the instability? No. How does God pick? Don't know. It's ridiculous, right? The issue here, right, is the instability hasn't gone away. It's just gotten papered over. You do everything you're supposed to do. You pray, you give your tithe, you do all the things you're supposed to do. You pray 5 times a day. Something bad so happens to you, and people say, God works in mysterious ways. What would Spinoza say about that? The whole reason why we did this religion thing, right, was because the superstitions were unstable. Now, we papered over the instability with centralization and pomp and ritual. But guess what? The instability is still there. When you say God works in mysterious ways, right, or is this the will of Allah? When you do that, what you're really saying is this any real? Is this any more real because you've added the stuff to it? No, it's not. When there's exceptions, you just have to trust me. That's what he's worried about. Because anytime there's a bug in the system, the man in charge can always say, you just need to have more faith. Trust in God. That means that the person at the front of the room they're never responsible and they're never wrong. If you question it, guess what you are? You're wrong. The system has a self-reinforcement. It doesn't make it even right. That's Spinoza's word. When you have a scientific problem, something actually happened bad to you, you've done all the religious stuff right, well, you just need to have more faith. Spinoza's going to say, you need to start thinking about what's happening here. Right? The instability is still here. The whole point of this was social control, but the system is still built on superstitions papered over with stuff. What Spinoza thinks is going to happen is 2 things. First of all, there are going to be breakdowns in the system. We're all going to go to church, we're all going to go to the mosque, we're all going to go to the synagogue, we're all going to do the right stuff, and an earthquake's going to happen. Why would God do this? If we do all the right things, why would God allow this to happen? You might find a way to explain it religiously, but you might begin to question the authorities. How do you know that God didn't do this? How do you know any of this stuff is true? You might begin questioning the religious powers. Eventually, if you keep raising these concerns, they're going to do what? When the instability raises its head, the first thing we can do is shut you up. Censorship. How to stop you from publishing your books. I might put you in jail so you can't publish books. I might prevent you from speaking in public by doing something to you. Now, does censorship work in the long term? Right. It makes you want to do it more. Censorship often has the opposite reaction. And if I ban your book, the more I read it. Censorship, over time, makes it less stable. If I'm the religious authorities here, do I actually have a real argument for why this bad stuff happens? No. I don't have the truth. I just have a bunch of dressed up stuff in gold and silver. The emperor has no clothes. That's Spinoza's argument. So I don't have a counter-argument. The next thing that develops, when you have those 2 different groups, right? Say you have the mainstream group, the big powerful one, but inside of it you have this hardcore sect that wants to go do these things differently. It's going to be a split or a fight. Maybe both. Protestants say the Catholics are corrupt, we're going to split off and do our own thing, and with a war. This is the logic though, right? Because again, what do these religions claim to have? The truth. And if you have a split within the religion, the hardcore versus the liberals, the progressive versus the conservative, the reformers versus the non-reformers, whatever, both sides think they have the truth, and they're going to fight over it. What Spinoza thinks is going to happen here, right? Sectarian violence. The idea of sects going against each other. Sectarians will kill each other with more vigor than even outsiders. Sunnis and Shias killing each other in Iraq. The violence is out of control. Think about it. If you have house-to-house fighting over religion, the whole point of this is to control people. It's doing the opposite. Because people actually believe what you're telling them. The system promises you the truth, and if you think the system isn't delivering on it, you'll go get it anyway. So what Spinoza is saying here is both mechanisms that the religious state has in order to stabilize itself, censor people you disagree with, or push the truth, both options destabilize the state. So it's not just that religion corrupts politics and politics corrupts religion. It's that the entire way that we've founded the system produces contradictions and social tensions that it can't resolve. The system itself is contradictory. It's all built on superstition, which is all just trying to manage people's hopes and fears. I don't know about you, but managing people's hopes and fears is just about impossible. You cannot successfully do it. It's like chasing after the wind. And Spinoza says it's going to cause all kinds of problems. Let's turn to Spinoza's answer to all this. This is his criticism. Religion is simply superstition dressed up for social control, which inevitably fails. That's what the first half of the book is. Religion is social control. It's using superstition to control people through their hopes and their fears, and it fails along censorship lines, and it fails along sectarian violence lines. His answer about solving this is by teasing apart superstition and religion. Obviously, he thinks that superstition is a bad thing. And when you use superstition and dress it up and call it religion, he thinks that's bad too. It's not really any more safe, any more stable. He thinks it's actually just worse in some sense. So how do we figure out what religion really is? It's a kind of obedience. Obedience to what? Imagine religion is sort of like a car. Outside, cars all look different from each other. Underneath the hood, they're all pretty similar. Still running on 100-year-old technology. Spinoza says if you look under the hood of Judaism or Christianity or Islam or Buddhism for that matter, they all say just 2 things. First thing, right? You got to believe in God. It's just for him a rational thing. They all say you believe in God. Not because of faith. His argument is You should believe in it because something must have caused all this. Something doesn't come from nothing. There is something. It must have come from something. God. Second thing Spinoza says, don't treat other people like you don't want to be treated. Now we can dress it up and stuff and say, thou shalt not. That's just dressing it up. You don't need some magical prophet to tell you the rules. You can ask yourself the rules and ask, do you want people to do this to you? Do you want people to help you when you're hurting? It doesn't take a prophet to figure that out. Spinoza says under the hood of all these religions are two basic things. An argument about how this got here, and an argument about what you should do with your life. Religion for Spinoza is simply God caused everything, and do justly to your neighbors. That is what Spinoza calls religion. If you add anything else to that, full superstition. Now, I want you to appreciate what he's done. Every world religion. Why this book was called A Book Forged in Hell by the Devil. He's just said Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, whatever. Insofar as they go anything beyond these two rules, they're just superstitions. Now, every major political system in the world this time generates their power from the religions, then their power is by nature superstitious. It's illegitimate. He's pissed off every single religious leader and every single political leader in one little book. This is 1670. This is a man who wants to die. If you add anything else, it's superstition, and if you add political power to it, it is by nature illegitimate. Spinoza says we have to go back to a sense of religion that is simply these two things. We can all agree on those two things, and we can all begin to build a rational foundation. It's a social contract. If we can build a social contract based on these things, we no longer have to build political power based on superstition and control. We can build it on reason, and rather than control, freedom. At the very end of the book, Spinoza says, for the first time in human history, the purpose of the state is freedom. Doyle, von der Stadt, ist die Freiheit. No one prior to Spinoza ever said the purpose of the government is freedom. And now, in order to do that, you have to eliminate superstitious foundation, because that's about controlling people, and you have to eliminate the idea that political power is about control. It is only possible to build the state freely if religion and the state are separated. It actually makes the state more stable, which is exactly the quote you read earlier. The system actually stabilizes, because if we have freedom of expression, we have the power from them, we don't have to censor them anymore. And if we build the system on reason, it's a competition of ideas, not a competition of the truth. It's not a competition around truths, and we have to negotiate them.